Here. Hope I'm doing outstanding. August 13th, 2024, 2:31 on this fine Tuesday afternoon. Markets are green again. Looks like four straight sessions to the upside. Who would have thunk it after last Monday's disaster? Back-to-back losses, the Friday jobs report, Japan markets selling off the most since 1987. People calling for emergency rate cuts. All heck was breaking loose, and now all of a sudden we're back to I wouldn't say normalcy just yet, but markets showing signs of at least holding their ground. And tomorrow we have the big CPI number. So PPI number came in this morning, much better, cooler than expected. Kind of gives a little more confidence that the CPI data at least won't be a surprise number to the upside. It's just a matter of if it's going to be in line or too cool. Right? Don't want it too cool. Then we'll have these more rumblings around possible recession, the R word. Don't like to hear that. Anyway, 535 was the big spot yesterday. Today, 540. We have some Fed speak today as well. So it was Bostic was on before, and a little dip in the market. Seems like it's just algo is just going in there, selling the little headlines that come through, and then we just bounce back. So holding the ground there. So good sign. Chop around here, maybe 540, 541. The 50-day moving average on the SPY right now is 543.26. So maybe that's a spot we'll come up and test maybe tomorrow, filling some gaps here on the chart too. So bodes well here. And PPI tomorrow, and I said it already, retail sales Thursday, Walmart earnings Thursday. And hey, the big thing now will be Jackson Hole. Jackson Hole will be in 2 weeks. I think it's 2 weeks. Maybe it's not next. I'll have to go look. I think maybe it's the 28th. Fed Chair Powell is going to speak on that Friday, and he'll probably update the course that the Fed's going to look to take into the end of the year. And I'm sure he'll talk about almost I wouldn't say guaranteeing, but just laying it out without saying that they're going to cut rates. That they're going to cut rates in September, and it's just a matter of how, if it's half percent or if it's a 0.25%. So that would be the next thing to look forward to. And then obviously the Fed meeting in September. So that's the SPY. The IWM still waiting for that to break over that 207 and change handle. I didn't even see where it is exactly at the second. 207.29, so we're close to 207.43 or so. I think that'll bode well. These small caps are actually performing today. They're only up 2 of the past 4 sessions. So would like to see those get back to outperforming. And then the VIX, which is solidly under 20, finally. Hopefully no late day shenanigans, no late spikes. And and then we have tomorrow. Cross the fingers. So individual names, and first Dell, you had that upgrade this morning from Barclays, and it wasn't even really an upgrade. It was from underweight to equal weight, and they kept their $97 price target, considering that's the stock closed at 95. That's not really a big upgrade, but I was saying this morning, ratings are more impactful to a stock than price target changes. So you see it ramping higher. There's a lot of analysts that have higher price targets, substantially higher price targets on Dell. So I think it trades up. I said 101 was the first target, so it hit that this morning. In hindsight, of course, I wish I held all my 100 strikes, but market's been a little bumpy. You never know with the data tomorrow. You never know what it could do intraday. So I went and locked them out for the last for 300%. And then I went and got some 110s into next week, which once the 101 hits, hopefully it can get over that 101 handle into the close or over tomorrow. Then I think 104.50, 104.75 is the next spot. If it does that this week, the 110s will be up solid. I'll lock some in to cover costs and go from there. I already locked some in to cover a little bit of cost. Let's just see here. I don't even know what. Sorry about that, folks. My mouse gets all messed up here. So I'll lock a little more in to cover the rest of the cost and then go from there. So that's Dell. And nice to see some of these other names start to move. And I didn't even realize Kramer talked about it this morning. He talked about Dell before the opening bell, saying, "Oh, it's a buy here." So kept the Kramer curse, and it's still rallying. So that's a good thing. All right, so that's Dell. All right, C Global, ticker SE. This was one of my names that was a top 5 stock back. I think it was 2000. Was it COVID? Maybe it's 2020. I'm trying to remember when it was. But I think this stock it was 30 or 40 bucks and went all the way up to 180. Maybe it was 2018. I got to go back and look. but then in COVID, it ran all the way up into the 300s. SE Global is like I wouldn't call it the Baidu of Southeast Asia, or maybe it's even the Amazon, but it has three major businesses. One of them is the e-commerce side, which is the biggest e-commerce in Taiwan, Southeast Asia, Taiwan, Malaysia, and they even have a South American presence. They also have a financial services side of their business. They do loans, things like that. And then they have a gaming entertainment side of the business. So between those three, the banking and the gaming are the profitable side, whereas the uh, e-commerce side, they lose money. So it's always the other branches that make the money subsidize the e-commerce, and e-commerce is growing 25% year over year on a clip. And they just reported earnings this morning. And at first glance, I look at the earnings, I say, wow, this is probably not going to do too much. But then you dig into it and you realize that their e-commerce platforms, the e-commerce business is set to be profitable. They raise their guidance to be profitable for into the back half, and I think quarter three, quarter four. So I think that's a lot of the reason why the stock has really taken off and reversed the morning, and then it just kept going. So I went and got some strikes. I think it trades up near $80, and unfortunately, you look at the chart, it was down in the 50s after the Asia markets and Japan sold off last week, and then it's been green ever since. So, of course, in hindsight, I would love to have got some of the calls last week, but I still think it offers a great return, risk reward, and I think I think it trades over 80 in the coming weeks. So. May look for some other positions to take advantage and move to the upside. I was actually looking at weeklies, then I was looking at the August 23rds, and then I looked at the August 30s. I figured that makes the best sense on a risk reward basis. So I got those strikes. And if you look at the chart, it seems like 75 is the big handle. So if you can break through 75, I think it's off the races. But it's a great story. When I made it one of my top 5 stocks, uh, it was it was just a it was already up quite a bit. I think the stock was like $3 or $4, went all the way up into the 20s and 30s, and people kind of left it for dead. And then I looked at it, I said, just because it's up from that level doesn't mean it can't go higher. And it's just a great business. They have $9 billion in cash. They do $15 million in revenues, a $38 billion company. So you take out the cash. I mean, it is an ADR, right? So it's uh, it's a foreign company listing, but it's still, I think, a great story. All right, so enough on that SE Global, SE Limited rant. Baidu finally got some strikes. I was talking about the last couple sessions, some of it for a possible sympathy move with Baba, some of it with just the fact that I think it's ready to not I don't know if we're gonna have a deja vu. The unfortunate thing with Baidu, if you pull back the chart and you look at a little further out, it's lower lows and lower highs all the way since back in October. I I I'm hoping that it does it does a higher low, and maybe it does a higher high, right? One of these cycles it'll break and it'll break out, and finally that'll be it. But it's not going to need much to get to $90 this week, especially if CPI numbers come in line tomorrow. And then Bob, it seems like that name is just, you look at any kind of metric for Alibaba, it just doesn't make sense where it's trading. But sometimes the market doesn't make sense, right? Just because you do all this the analysis and look at all the fundamentals and say, wow, it's severely undervalued. Just because you think it is doesn't mean the market is. And there's a lot of folks who are short just China in general, that whole sector. So kind of the thought process there, getting those Baidu strikes. I may look to get some calls into their earnings as well, but I think I'm just going to do wait and see mode. So still plenty of time, maybe tomorrow, or I'll wait to post Baba earnings to look to add some of those strikes. So that's Baidu, SE Global, Dell, uh, Chipotle. As I'm looking at some of these other names I talked about on the watch list, I was looking for a possible bounce on Chipotle. It just kept melting. I was saying 50 handle. It broke under 50, 49, 48. I think it went to 47 and change. I think it was, actually it hit exactly at 48 at about 10:15, and then it's reversed almost $4 here into the afternoon. It's trading 51.73. Missed the bounce. I'm not going to kick myself for it. I was looking for a bounce. I was looking at other things. And at the same time, I didn't expect it to drop under that 50 handle that substantially. But I mean, you look at all the folks who are talking about what a big deal this Brian Nickel thing going to Starbucks is, just for Starbucks alone. So you have to think, and you look how much valuation Starbucks has added today. I'm not saying that a reciprocal amount of market capitalization should be lost on Chipotle, but he's definitely a leader that'll be missed. But I think if you take a look what he does, he puts the business on the right path and the right trajectory, and that's what he's done with Chipotle. And he can, leave holding his head high, and now he'll take Starbucks to the next level. So, uh, or at least revive the brand, because Starbucks is still a great company. So definitely a name I'll continue to watch. Look at the 200-day moving average on Chipotle. It's 53.54. So that'd be a big spot. If it breaks over that, maybe it can do some kind of, move up into the high 50s. So a name I'll be watching over the coming days. But again, I'm probably gonna be a little cautious this afternoon. Maybe a name I'll visit tomorrow after CPI data. Two of my I won't call them turd names, but part of my language. But WW is starting to reverse some of the losses from yesterday. It's funny. You had the SEMA insider buy on Friday. The stock goes bonkers. Then it sells off yesterday. There's no catalyst, no news. And then today it's back up nearly 11%. You look at the candles, they're inside candles, meaning the highs and the lows aren't above Friday's highs and lows. So as long as we have inside candles, that's consolidation. I think that signals, hey, maybe this is the consolidation chop we need before the next leg. So like the move there. Similar on iRobot. Finally, I mean, the bleeding looks like maybe it stopped. It's up about 15% right now. Just need that to just get a little bit of mojo, and you start looking at the momentum indicators and the RSI. The RSI was under 30, so typically when it's under 30, that's severely oversold conditions. And then you look at the momentum indicators, and it's been bearish, and now looks like a possible bullish crossover is happening. So if that happens down, next day or two, I think it's back to the levels it was in that 975 area that iRobot failed to break through. Once that breaks, I think it's good to go. I think that's about it. I'm trying to say, Clear Secure. It's sitting there. I was looking at the 30s and I was looking at the 27s. It's not the most liquid and not the fastest mover. So I'll continue to look for opportunities to try and trade that for upside. I think it trades up near $30. If you look, it's at 52-week highs. I think it's 28 and change was the highs from back in March of 2023. So if it maybe, again, I don't want to put too much risk in going into tomorrow. So as much as I think that heads up to 30, maybe I'll get a better opportunity to add some strikes. Probably not, but I'll just wait till tomorrow for that. And I think that's it, folks. I'm trying to think. Oh, ENVX. I don't know if it's rallying with the rest of the small cap names. I'm reading that I guess they fired their investor relations. I think I was talking about that the other day. If you go to FinTwit, people complain about their investor relations, which I've never heard on a billion-dollar company. But I guess if you're bullish the name, it's not going your direction. You got to start finding things to blame, right? You need scapegoats, right? If you're wrong about your trade, and I get plenty wrong, but I just blame the market, right? Well, most times when people, especially some of these shorts or longs, when things go the wrong way, they just blame it on manipulation, right? But so at least they blame it on investor relations. But I don't get it. I mean, the company has no revenue, and they've already created a lot of press with vague releases, and some of the issues because they've done the vague releases. There's 43 million shares are sold short because a lot of people they look at it, and until there's clarity in regards to customers, purchase orders, if they get any contracts, all that stuff. If there was any meat on those press releases, any specifics, I think the shorts would go away and maybe the stock would trade much higher. But I don't think so. I think batteries are commoditized products. I think it's the wrong time. Everybody's talking, thinks it's the next best thing. Maybe it is. I don't know. I'm trying to think of some of the other names going today. I mean, take a look at Redfin. Gosh, I was talking about it yesterday in regards to sectors that have to be disrupted. Uh, Look at rates are just continue to fall, so you have to think that's bullish. I see people construing the rate drop, saying, "Wow, the housing market's going to get destroyed," but it's like to me, it's like a flip, two sides to it, right? Right now, if people who have a mortgage and they have a low interest rate, and I don't know, it's like what's the statistic? 75% of the mortgages are under 4.5% or something, probably even less than that. They're waiting for the rates to drop if they're looking to get another house, right? It doesn't make sense for you if you have a 500,000 mortgage and you want to get a 500, you just want to take that and some cash and whatever, and get a $750,000 house, but use $250,000 to buy it. So you have the same amount, but you're paying. Let's say you pay 2% more interest on that 500,000. That's $10,000 a year. You divide that by 12, goes that $800 extra a month just because of the interest rates, right? So I mean, you can go and move and and hope that you can refinance in the coming years as the rates drop. So, I mean, there's more to it. You can pay for point. There's ways around it. But I think there's a lot of pent up, not only there's pent up demand because people are waiting for rates to drop, but there's some of the pent up supply. And I don't think it's going to be enough to saturate the market to the point where there'll be some kind of housing crash. But I guess we'll find out. But a lot of people are talking about some of the signs, right? But there's always signs. There's been signs for the last 15 years on this massive bull market we've been on. So that's it, folks. Thanks for listening. I'll be back on audio tomorrow. Let's have a great end of the day. Rock and roll.